load side, but mostly it's the generator. So a renewable power producer needs to show that when they create a megawatt hour of renewable energy that qualifies within the system, that they're delivering the attributes and the energy together to the market. Now, what happens in most instances is that the energy goes one way and the attributes get created into a REC and then go into the system independently of the power once the renewable energy has been delivered to the grid. But the point that I want to make here is that the owner of the RECs in the first instance is different than in the context of the carbon credits, because it goes along with the person who creates the energy in the first instance, the owner of the renewable energy. So it's difficult to structure projects where that REC goes anywhere other in the first instance than to the project company itself. So when you look back at Barbara's diagram, the REC would be earned by the project vehicle in that diagram. It wouldn't be earned by the equity player or by the lender or a technology supplier. Now, to understand what's going on with wood pellets, you need to essentially understand two things. The wood pellets that are being produced in very large quantity in BC and being sold to Europe, I've referred to this as BC to Newcastle, shipping Canadian wood to Newcastle to co-fire with coal in power plants in Europe. What's happening there is that the wood pellets are viewed as being a sustainable biomass. And as a consequence of being a sustainable biomass, they're zero rated for greenhouse gas accounting purposes. So the regulated player in Europe that's operating in the European emissions trading system is allowed to ignore the emissions released from the wood when it's burned in calculating its aggregate emissions. So what drives the value of the wood pellet? And why is it that you can actually ship BC wood pellets all the way to Europe, right? Starting up in Prince George and places like that, and ending up at a coal-fired power plant in the Netherlands or in England? Well, it's a combination of the BTU value of the wood. Obviously, it's being combusted to produce steam, to produce electricity, but it's also the environmental attributes. The fact that you can ignore that one, you can ignore the tonnage of CO2 that's produced by that biomass when combusted. So the value of the wood pellet is a function of the value of the BTU, which is going to be compared to coal in most instances, and the value of the European allowances. These are the cap and trade allowances that the European regulated sectors have to deal with on an ongoing basis. Now, to give you an idea of the relative weight, in deals that I've seen over the past 3 or 4 years, the price of the pellet has been divided in some instances essentially evenly between the BTU value and the value of the attribute. So half of the purchase price, this is the point, half of the purchase price going to the manufacturer of the pellet, the person selling the pellet, is attributable to the attributes, the environmental attributes of the biomass. This came as a bit of a surprise to me. I did not think it would be that high. So there, where does the incentive go? Well, the incentive goes to the manufacturer of the pellet. And this is an important distinction for any of you that are looking at biofuels and looking to take advantage of climate change-related incentives in the use of biofuels. The tendency is to reward the people who change their behavior. So if you're in the wood pellet case, it's the coal-fired power plant who is changing fuels. He's switching from coal to a sustainable biomass. Now, when you're dealing with biofuels for land transport, the people who are changing the behavior are the people filling up their tanks, right? It's the taxi driver, the trucker, the people operating machinery in manufacturing context. So it's difficult to imagine a carbon credit play where the manufacturer of the fuel is going to earn the credit. It's much easier to see a circumstance where the price of the fuel is going to carry a valuation associated with the environmental attributes. the next slide on who gets the incentive. Now, here I'm focusing on carbon credit projects, and is it possible, Anis, to pull up one of Barbara's slides, slide number 19? Can that be done?
It may be hard, Doug.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you remember Barbara's, there we are. Oh, it's not hard. It's there. Now, my point here is that this is one example of a carbon credit structure that Barb has put up here, and it's a very standard carbon finance project finance diagram where the project activity is run by a project entity, a special purpose vehicle, and the revenues associated with the carbon play go to the project vehicle. But what's important to remember is that because the system does not say the credits must go to the project entity, it's up to all of these players here, the off-taker, the equity, the expertise, the technology, the lender, it's up to them to agree how the credits are going to be distributed in the first instance. They do not have to be created in the name of the project entity. This is really important to understand. There are lots of people out there that are putting equity into projects who are looking to get credits created in their name, and it's treated as an enhancement to their dividend. So if you go back to my slide now, let's see if I can control that. Am I still in control of my, sorry, whoever put us to the diagram, if we could go back to Tingey's. Okay, here it is. So if you look at the list that I've got down there, earnings, dividends, capital gains, rent, interest, royalties, or fees, those are income streams or ways to make money off of a project, right? So earnings is going to go to the project vehicle. So if your deal is structured so that carbon credits go to the project vehicle and they're sold through an ERPA into the market, the revenues are going to show up as part of the project vehicle's earnings and increase the rate of return to the vehicle. But it doesn't have to work that way. You can set it up so that the carbon credits are issued more in kind of a dividend. All right. So the credits, when they come out on an annual basis, are actually issued in the name of the shareholders, of the equity holders, and they would be receiving those credits in a form akin to a dividend. Jump down to rent. There's a lot of activity in the prairies with reduced tillage. A very significant portion of the offsets available in Alberta that are used in their compliance system come from reduced tillage projects. Now what's happening is that the owner of the land, and in many cases a farmer who's leasing the land, enter into an agreement to divide the benefit of the credits. So when the credits are issued, they get distributed between the owner of the land and the farmer. Now, in many cases, the owner and the farmer are the same person, but it's possible if a carbon credit project is land intensive to have the landowner incentivized by issuing the landowner credits, right? And the landowner is then able to sell the credits to generate revenue that would be in addition to whatever rent is paid by the tenant. So if in a First Nations context the land may only be leased to a project, then one of the avenues for the First Nations participant is to say, all right, well, we'll negotiate our lease agreement in a way that we get to share in the carbon finance, and as a result to enhance our rental income. Now, the same thing goes for technology. Most technology suppliers earn royalties, and in some key projects, such as my mining project, the owner of the technology is a key player, and he is in a position to negotiate for direct access to the credit. Now, the reason why I'm hammering on this issue is that